Okay, people, it's time for another one of my famous tier lists. This time, I'm going to use a preset template from the folks here at Tiermaker because I don't have time to F around, okay? I got a lot to say about this. We're going to talk about a subject that this is guaranteed to upset absolutely everybody. There's no way that I'm going to do this without making a lot of people angry, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyway because I got to speak the truth to power, and you are the power, and I will speak truth to you. I will give you my definitive United States tier list. I'm not going to do all of them because I have not spent time in every state, but I've spent time in a lot of states. Been around these United States of America a pretty good amount, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. All you hockey fans out there, I have some very, very exciting news for you.
Breaking news.
I've teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6 to help bring you the ultimate game day experience. DraftKings just launched Pick 6, a new way to play daily fantasy. All new customers will get a 100% deposit match up to $100 in Pick 6 credits when you deposit just $5 or more. What a deal! Getting started is simple. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app using the link in the description of this video and sign up using the code FINN, F-I-N-N. Then just select 2 to 6 hockey players and choose if they're going to have more or less of a stat. Then track your lineup and compete against others for a shot at huge cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and sign up with the code FINN, F-I-N-N. New customers can get a 100% deposit match up to $100 in Pick 6 credits when they deposit just $5. That's code FINN, F-I-N-N, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Let's start with one that I got a lot of bad things to say about it. Let's talk about New York State, okay? Listen, people, New York State, I gotta say, it's probably one of the worst states in the country, okay? Buffalo, awful. Rochester, awful. Poughkeepsie, awful. Staten Island, awful. Long Island, awful. Hudson Valley, awful. New York City, awful, but at least there is some good say. Albany, awful. At least New York City, there's cultural stuff there, right? It literally smells like pee and hot garbage in the summer. It's colder than a witch's tit in the winter. The people there are rude as hell. I worked in Midtown for a year. I lived in New Jersey and I worked in Midtown for a year, and I hated every second of it. Literally rat infested. I remember waiting for the subway during the summer at 4 p.m. or something like that, and there was literally a rat as big as my head just sort of hanging out on the train tracks. Nobody thought anything of it. Smells like hot garbage with a rat the size of your head running around. Hey, welcome to New York City. It's only $4,000 a month for an apartment here. And that's the best part of the state, okay? The rest of the state is even worse than that. I could go on and on. I have had so many, just of the most depressing experiences of my life in New York State. It goes on the F tier. I'm sorry, people. It sucks. It's terrible. New York State, one of the worst states in the union. Now, let's talk about its other coastal counterpart, California. Now, a lot of people will say that California, is some sort of socialist, dystopia, and it's a failed state and it's terrible and rah, rah, rah. I gotta disagree. Okay. Now, California has its faults. It is true that it is in some ways a socialist dystopia. That's not wrong, but let's put it this way. Imagine you had any amount of money. Okay. Imagine you had the money to live anywhere in the United States, or maybe anywhere in the entire world. You'd probably choose Southern California, wouldn't you? Yeah, there's literal shit everywhere. That's true. San Francisco sucks. Okay? San Francisco sucks. Extremely irritating people. Just the most pretentious, snobby dickholes. San Francisco sucks. The Bay Area is cool. The peninsula. My cousins are from Palo Alto, and I think the peninsula in Silicon Valley is great. Well, San Jose kind of sucks, but the peninsula is cool. San Mateo County is cool. San Diego is it's basically perfect. San Diego County, Oceanside and Encinitas, pretty much perfect. If I could live anywhere in the world, I think I'd probably live in Encinitas. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, right? I'm just saying, for all the people that want to say that California is this socialist dystopia, I disagree. I'm going to put it in the S tier. Now, let's talk about Ohio. How about that? Ohio's another state that I've spent a lot of time in. Unfortunately, I lived in Ohio for about 12 years. Ohio's an interesting state because people from the West Coast think that Ohio is like Kansas or something. Ohio, last I checked, is the 5th biggest state in the country. Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati are all like good-sized cities. There's also like Toledo, Dayton, Akron are also like decent-sized cities. It's a huge state, and there's an absolute shitload of people from Ohio. I mean, like, think about how many bands have been from Ohio at some point in time. Now, the thing is, Ohio's not great. I am scarred. I am emotionally scarred from the time that I lived in Ohio, and I lived all over Ohio, okay? I've lived in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. God knows how I managed to do that, but I did. Columbus is pretty cool. I like Columbus. Columbus is my favorite city that's not on the West Coast, I think. Cincinnati, absolute shithole. Cleveland, pretty crappy. But overall, you know, Ohio is not the worst place in the world. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. I'd say D tier is a fair ranking for it. But let's talk about my home state of Washington, the evergreen state. Now, here's what I'll say about Washington. Washington, in my opinion, the most beautiful state in the country in the summer. You look at this shit, I don't think people know how beautiful Washington is, especially in the summer. It does not get any better than this. Come on, people. Look at this. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. You could be standing on a sandy beach in the middle of summer looking at a snow-capped mountain with whales. I mean, come on. Yeah, the month and a half of Washington summer is great. Yeah, we don't get much of a summer, it's true. Or this shit out on the peninsula, it looks like another world, right? Like, it's just unearthly. It looks like you set foot in some sort of like really cool, amazing alien world where everything is beautiful and fantastic. Now, the downside is that it's expensive. Washington is basically as expensive as California now. Seattle is like slightly cheaper than the Bay Area, but not a whole lot. It's probably about the same cost as LA. It's not cheap, and it does suffer from all the same problems as the other West Coast states, meaning that the progressive government lets people literally poop on the sidewalk and throw their needles everywhere. If you want to smoke fentanyl on the bus, not a problem. We're a really cool, progressive, tolerant city. You can smoke meth and fentanyl on the bus, but you can't use a plastic bag at the grocery store. We've banned plastic straws and plastic bags at the grocery stores, but poop on the sidewalk, smoke crack on the bus, not a problem. We've got our priorities straight, but still, I would say Washington is an S-tier state in a different way than California. I would say Washington is prettier than California, but yeah, I think Washington's great. Now, how about, here's a controversial one. Kentucky. You might think of Kentucky as an absolute shithole. I'm going to put Kentucky a little bit above Ohio, okay? You might think of Kentucky as a shithole. It's actually not. So Cincinnati, Ohio is right over the border from Kentucky. I've been to Kentucky like hundreds of times because we would go there all the time. The first time I ever did cocaine was in Louisville, or as they call it there, Louisville. My friend took me, we bought coke from some like 30-year-old woman that sold coke out of her apartment. She was all gacked out. And before she would cut up our lines for us, she made us watch, this sounds like something out of Gummo. It's amazing. She made us watch this Megadeth video on one of these TV VCR things. And this is like 2009. Okay, this was not like 1985. This is 2009. She's making us watch this Megadeth video on one of those 12-inch TV VCR combo things while she's like, you know, cutting up our line. And it was quite an experience. So I'm like, okay, the first time I'm doing cocaine, it's in Kentucky under the following circumstances. Interesting life choice. Definitely the closer you get to West Virginia, the worse. That's true. And I'll say everything bad that you've heard about West Virginia, unfortunately, is true. West Virginia, it's F tier. Everything you've heard about West Virginia is as bad as you think. It really, truly is absolutely awful. It is incredibly depressing. Do not ever go there. I'm sorry. It is absolutely soul crushing. Like, if you think urban poverty is bad, you haven't seen anything. Like, I would way rather live in the hardest ghetto of Chicago than like the shitholes of West Virginia. It's fucking awful. And I've spent a lot of time there because my former girlfriend was from Cumberland, Maryland, or Frostburg, actually, which is like right across the border from West Virginia. I've been to Paw Paw, West Virginia. What do you know about West Virginia? I know a lot about West Virginia. It is an absolute shithole. Never go there. Never, ever, ever, ever go there. I'm sorry. It is truly awful. Let's talk about Oregon, which I think Oregon I'm going to put on the A tier. Because to me, Oregon in some ways is like the best and worst of like California and Washington. The Oregon coast, I would say, very underrated. Like Cannon Beach, Oregon is fucking amazing. This is one of my favorite places in the whole world. I absolutely love Cannon Beach. If you get the chance, go on vacation here. It's fucking amazing. Cannon Beach is incredible. Yeah, inland is not great. It's true. So the Oregon coast is amazing. No sales tax is cool. That's true. But the thing about Oregon is it's like a little bit rednecky in a weird way. Portland is kind of the crappiest big city on the West Coast. It's actually not that big. It's kind of small. And Portland is full of basically like just the most absolute insufferable hippies. Also like drug addicts and homeless people. Yeah, and crust punks. A lot of crust punks. Like everything about Portland is worse than Seattle or San Francisco, basically. It's just a worse version of Washington and California. But Washington and California are great states. So Oregon being the worst West Coast state is still pretty good. I think. Still pretty good. How about Pennsylvania? I gotta say, Pennsylvania is underrated. Pennsylvania is where the East Coast slowly becomes the Midwest. That's exactly right. Pittsburgh is another city. I actually like Pittsburgh. Like, Pittsburgh, to me, is the second best city that's not in the West. Columbus, number one. Pittsburgh, number two. Pittsburgh is an underrated city. It's a little bit grimy and blue collar in a lot of ways, but it's cheap and there's a fair amount of cool stuff there. There's good schools there because CMU is one of the best schools in the country. But there's Yinzers. That's right. Yin's going down a crick. Yinzers are something else. But, you know, Pittsburgh is it's an underrated city. Philadelphia, shithole. Harrisburg, shithole. Oh, that's right, Sheetz. It is the home of Sheetz. I am team Sheetz, okay? On the East Coast, there is an intense Sheetz-Wawa rivalry. And Sheetz is from beautiful Altoona, PA. Altoona, PA, actually not beautiful. Altoona, PA kind of sucks. But I've spent a lot of time out there. I have a lot of fond memories of Pennsylvania, weirdly enough, especially Pittsburgh. Pennsylvania has probably the weirdest city names too, like Intercourse, PA, and Blue Balls, PA, Oil City, PA. Got a lot of weird names. There's a lot of crappy places in Pennsylvania, but I don't know. I have kind of a soft spot for Pennsylvania, so I'm going to put it on the D tier, or B tier rather. Now let's talk about Florida. Florida gets a bad name, and kind of for good reason. People think of Florida as being this like white trash place, which there certainly is a decent amount of that, but I think Florida is underrated. I do. I think Florida is underrated. I don't like Miami, but I think Orlando is great. I like Orlando a lot. Orlando is one of my favorite cities. Again, I would say it's maybe my third. Columbus, Pittsburgh, Orlando. I'm positively inclined towards Orlando. I think it's a nice place, especially now, you know, places like Winter Park are pretty cool now. The problem with Florida is that it's much more expensive now than it should be. Like, Florida used to be cheap. Now it's kind of expensive. Yeah, Florida and Ohio are basically the same place. It's true. Like, Orlando and Columbus are the same place with different weather. Miami, I'm not a fan of Miami. Some other parts of South Florida, like Fort Lauderdale and stuff, is fine, but like the city of Miami itself, no thank you. I don't know about the Gulf side of Florida, like St. Petersburg and Tampa and stuff. I've never spent time there, but you know, again, Florida, think of how many great bands are from Florida. There's a reason for that. You know, Newfound Glory, A Day to Remember, Less Than Jake, you know, every fucking 90s death metal band. So I'm going to say a hot take here, but I'm putting Florida on the B tier. I think it's kind of an underrated state. That's what I think. I haven't spent a lot of time in North Dakota, but I've driven through it a few times, and I gotta say, holy shit, that is a actual wasteland. Like, imagine the procedurally generated, like, fucking just nothingness in like Fallout New Vegas or something like that, where if there was just like absolutely nothing there, no points of interest, no nothing. Like, New York State sucks and West Virginia sucks, but like North Dakota is like literal actual fucking wasteland. Like, literal wasteland. Never, ever, ever, ever go to North Dakota or South Dakota for anything if you can help it. Don't even drive through there if you can help it. Absolutely awful. I got time for a couple more. Where are some places that I've actually spent a decent amount of time? I feel like I covered the basics here. Oh, New Jersey. New Jersey. There's one. I lived in New Jersey. Got to do that. Now, New Jersey is an interesting one. I would not say that New Jersey is a great place, but I think it's underrated. You know, you've heard all these jokes about New Jersey for decades, from basically all these like snobby, here's what it is. Here's the root of the New Jersey hate. It's a bunch of people who grew up in suburban New Jersey and then moved to New York, and now they think they're too good for New Jersey. So they all have to like show how cultured they are and like, oh, I'm not like all the other B&T people from New Jersey. I hate my home state of New Jersey. See, I'm one of the cool New Yorkers now. And I don't think New Jersey is amazing, but it's a lot better than you might think. If you've never been there, you might think that it's like, you know, just this horrible wasteland. And there's certainly parts of it that are. I'll tell you this. I used to do jujitsu in Newark in like 2002. It was right on Broad Street, if you know Newark. I don't know what it's like now, but back then, Broad Street in Newark at like 10 p.m. at night was terrifying, especially if you're white. I would be like waiting for the bus there at like 10 p.m. by myself to go back. I lived in Montclair, and people would stop, like they would be driving down the street and they would stop and look at me just like, what the fuck is that white boy doing here? Like, is he like, what? And I asked one of the guys from the gym there, I was like, am I okay to like take the bus home by myself? And he was like, yeah, man, don't worry about it. They're either going to think you're crazy or you're a cop. Either way, they'll leave you alone. And he was right. Newark is an absolute shithole. Camden and Trenton are actually even worse, or at least they were last time I was there. Irvington, terrifying. I remember going to a show in Paterson, New Jersey in like the late 90s. And we were like running around doing graffiti after the show. We got chased by like random neighborhood people 3 times in one night in Paterson and Clifton. I don't know what they're like now, but it was super scary back then. However, there's lots of other nice parts of New Jersey, like Red Bank, New Jersey is lovely. I think the Jersey Shore is fine. I wouldn't say it's like the best place in the whole world, but it's fine. I think New Jersey, and then there's, you know, then when you go west a little bit, like Short Hills Mall is lovely, or the area that Dillinger Escape Plan is from. I think they're from Morris Plains, right? Out near Hackettstown and all that. That part's super nice. You know, it's nothing amazing, but it's just like suburban, you know, it's a nice place. So New Jersey, I'm going to say, is an underrated state. I'm going to put it on the D tier, on par with Ohio. I don't think it's amazing. Let's put it this way. New York State is the real shithole. I would much rather live in New Jersey than New York any day of the week. That's what I think. Those are my opinions on the United States of America. I haven't been to the rest of them. Well, I've been to almost all of them, but I haven't spent enough time in the rest of these places to have an opinion. But that is my opinion on these United States of America, people. The United States of America tier list. Join us another time for some other tier list of geography. I'll do a cities tier list. How about that? I'll do that another time. That's what we'll do. So there it is, people. The definitive word on these United States of America.